Hello, I'm Jim Miller. I'm here with Reggie Turner and Henry House. The Flipside starts right now. Welcome to the show. We're happy to have with us tonight Heather Guessford. Heather is, can I still say recently appointed?
You can still use that, yes. It's been 6 months.
To the United Way, their leader. Heather, we have a lot to talk about tonight.
We do.
Let's kick it off, though, talking about the United Way in general terms. So the United Way is a national agency, but you represent the local agency. How does the national agency influence the local agency? What controls do they put? How do they benefit you?
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me here also to talk a little bit about the United Way. We always say it's your United Way, it's not mine, it's the community's. The United Way worldwide is the most recognizable brand, most trusted nonprofit in the world. So with that, there comes a lot of protections, a lot of brand guidelines. Just like any other franchisee, we have to adhere to all of those brand standards and brand guides. But what they offer is a lot of marketing support, policy, procedure support, but we're like any other franchisee.
Okay. So from a donation perspective, though, and from a monetary perspective, do they dictate who gets the money that's donated locally?
They don't, but so that's the fun part, is that we have full control locally. The not so fun part, which is a big misconception, is that we have so much support from United Way worldwide, and that actually is not the case. Just like any other franchisee, we actually have to pay dues to United Way worldwide for them to provide us with these great brands that we have, our Live United campaign, our Be the One campaign. They provide all of our training, development. Right now we're obviously very heavy with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they bring in all of our speakers, they bring in all of the new platforms that we really want to start focusing on, but we have to pay for that. So we control all the money that's raised here and spent here. But then again, like any other franchise, we still have to pay dues to United Way worldwide in order to access those resources.
So we want to get into the funding and the money raising. Reggie, do you want to ask a question or two on that?
Tell us about the most recent cycle. We know, and we'll talk more about COVID later, but there has been some funding needs of the community that you guys fulfill. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a really critical time for us. We're actually entering what most people know as campaign season. Mind you, we fundraise all year long. We run employer campaigns all year long. But really, September through December, when most businesses are running their enrollment campaigns, that's our meat and potatoes. So right now, I'm glad that we're here and we're talking about this, because this is when we typically would say we need your help. Our most recent funding cycle, we're on a fiscal year, so it would have ended June 30th. We released right back into Washington County over $800,000 in cash. That went to over 40 agencies. Now, funding's different for everybody. We have funding that are emergency grants. We have funding that what a lot of people know us for, which we call community impact grants. So it's broken out into different designation levels. We also have what we call direct designations, which was over $150,000. So all of that together, cold hard cash in the past 12 months, over $800,000. And that's not including all of the services that we're providing, emergency aid, PPE, all of those things, food, a lot of those things people see us out doing. So that's just cash. That's a big deal. Our community, if we couldn't do what I'm trying to do every single day, you're talking about 40 agencies, 12 of them really depend on our funding. I don't know where they'd be without us. No pressure. No pressure there whatsoever.
Now, what you facilitate is with the different agencies. You eliminate the duplicate of effort. So if Reggie's on a charitable board and Jim's on a charitable board, we're not fighting for the same money. They can give to United and then you help facilitate to make sure it gets to where it needs, that we don't have an overlapping effort in the community. Is that?
Yeah, that's an accurate statement. And anybody that knows me, I've served on just about every board in this town through my career. And I've actually stayed with the United Way the longest. I've been a volunteer here for 16 years for that reason, before I finally was just handed the keys after hanging around for so long, I guess. But for that very reason is I like the fact that I can support so many people and so many organizations through one filter. So what's different about the United Way compared to other amazing nonprofits is two things: the accountability, the way we require people to report back and we hold people accountable for your donations. And the second thing is impact areas. So if you say, okay, you know, kids are really, really important to me. Well, instead of just giving directly to the Boys and Girls Club, when you donate to the United Way, we say, we're going to take that donation that you intend for kids, for example, and it's now going to 6 kids-focused organizations and 6 focused programs. So it doesn't go to operations. We don't fund operations. It goes to kid-focused programs. So your donation just went to Girls Inc., On Track, WCPS Education Foundation, of course, Boys and Girls Club, Big Brothers Big Sisters. So we just took that $100 and split it up 5 or 6 ways, and none of it went to operations. It all went to the kids.
But if I'm an employee within the county system and my employer, participates in the Live United campaigns, I don't have to do that research of saying, well, where do I want my money to go?
Yep.
Because all these organizations already vet themselves through you, and you find what's viable in the community.
You ding, 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 you nailed it. We do all of the heavy lifting for you. That's where we say, fund community impact. But you do have some people that are really picky about, certain groups here and there. But your best investment for the community is that community impact fund, because we literally screen, and I'm talking about screen very heavily, every single dollar that we send out. Who's it going to? What are you doing with it? And then all the agencies and the programs that we fund, they have to report back to us every quarter, and they have to prove that your hard-earned money went to exactly where it was going to.
So talk about that filter that you mentioned. Who or what is the method or the process for that filter? Who does that?
And that's where it's really good for me to be the one at the asking for the cash, because I'm actually not the one that gets to decide where it's spent. In order to, again, maintain the integrity of the process, we call them Community Impact Committee, and it's leaders in our community just like yourselves, and they volunteer their time, and they're all representing different agencies. So Meritus, we have the Mental Health Foundation or Mental Health Center, churches. People from all different demographics and careers volunteer their time to review hours and hours of grant applications, hours and hours of reports for where the money's going. They have an independent rating system. We have an algorithm that we figured out through the years to where no one can really influence anybody's opinion over one grant or another. So they all sit down, volunteer their time, rate the grants, and then we collectively pool that data, so we know, okay, Reggie, we can't say, well, Reggie, scored reach lower than CAC, or Jim did this. It's completely, when we put it together, it's very much a protected privacy process. So we
it's
know
anonymous.
And we pool it together, and then everybody gets a score. So with that score, based on their applications, then we say, okay, anybody that got above, say, for example, an 80%, we know that they will be moved on through the next round of funding. Then we take it even a step further, and we bring the agencies in for an interview. So we now know we have a score, we have a collective score, like, yes, they would be good to fund, or no, there's holes in their application. And just because, let me say this, just because you don't get funded through community impact doesn't mean it's not a good program. It just means it wasn't a good fit for that grant. So we try to help those groups in other ways. I don't want it to, people to think, oh, you don't help this person and that person. We do. It's just through different means. So we put them through to the next process. They come in, they give an in-person interview in front of the panel of volunteers, and they ask them those tough questions. Why do you need the money? Why do you need it more than someone else? I'm looking at your 990, and you're sitting on piles and piles of cash. Why are you in need of this emergency grant, for example? So, and again, it's trying to maintain the integrity of the process. And then after they go through all of that, we go through one final voting process, and the who gets how much money compared to what they ask for is all based on those percentages and those scores. So we know at the end of the year when I'm done fundraising, we have an X amount of money, a pool, and we know we literally plug it into our little spreadsheet, and it's based on those percentages as far as who gets what. So it's really a foolproof, flawless system, and that way nobody can be influenced over another based on, who people serve on or who people like over another one. If there's a volunteer that has a connection to an agency or serves, they have to exclude themselves. They can't vote on that application. It doesn't hurt that agency, but it also their scores can't count towards it. So they actually can't even be in the room when we're talking about them. Like Micah's Backpack is one of our biggest programs. We have a lady that is a church that is a Micah's church. She physically has to exit the room when we talk about Micah's Backpack. So yeah, it's impressive. It's really impressive.
And on the back end, you then have the accountability to make sure that they spent the money as they said they were going to.
Yeah, we have bless her heart, we have a lady that's she's our numbers geek. She's really in bed with all of that and collecting the reports and getting all the agreements and everything signed, and it's a lot of hand holding. It's a lot of chasing agencies, making sure that they have what they need. But we want to do that service because we know our agencies are out busy, saving lives. They're out busy helping kids and helping the community. Their grant application, their grant reports may not always be top of mind for them. So Jocelyn, my community impact director, that's her baby. She keeps them on track so they can go keep doing their good work, but she holds them accountable to what they say they're going to do with the money.
Okay. We have more questions for you, Heather. When we come back, let's talk about this upcoming campaign.
Let's do it.
Stay with us. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back. Again, we're happy to have Heather Guessford with us from the United Way. Heather, let's talk about the campaign coming up for this year.
'Tis the season.
Yes. So, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Can you tell us about the current campaign and what you have going?
Absolutely. This is, we always joke, 'tis campaign season. This is my favorite time of year. It's also what we call Days of Caring season as well. Most people know, and it's all encompassing in campaign, but most people know United Way from that big day of caring. Last year, over 1,800 volunteers conducted over 175 service projects all in one day. Well, because of COVID, we've now stretched that out into multiple days. So we're packaging Day of Caring into Days of Caring season. So that's all encompassing in campaign. We have a lot of different events that we've planned, and one that already actually took place to kind of kick off the season. The spirit of the season was last week. We had a health fair with our partner agency, Family Healthcare, where we gave out COVID kits, COVID preparedness kits, some kits for kids. But that was the first official Day of Caring event. We also, of course, have a lot of other things planned. We still have our big, service day, the big day of unity where people are coming together to show acts of kindness. They're doing service projects and nonprofit organizations. We are still doing residential houses. That's the number one thing I'm asked about right now. We are just staying outside to keep our senior citizens safe. That is September 17th this year, but there are literally a dozen other things that we have planned. We have blood drives planned, parades. We even have, we're doing a pen pal program right now with our senior citizens, and in nursing homes, our Youth United kids are writing to them. There's just a lot, so more to come there. But how can we do all those awesome fun things? That's where the cash campaign kicks in. You guys will be the first to know because when this goes live, the community will know. We are officially unveiling our goal and our face of our campaign this year. So drum roll, please. I can't.
Please.
There you go. Gary Hayes, who is the outgoing chair of the chamber, who is owner of Spherion Staffing, but is best known for all of his
Colorful?
eye-catching, colorful suits, is going to be our 2020-2021 campaign chair. So huge thank you to Gary Hayes, Spherion Staffing. He's going to be our face this year. Our goal, $800,000. Can we get there? Praise God and everything holy, we need to get there because there's a lot of agencies that need us. That is a big ask. We've been bigger. We've raised more. We have to be a little bit conservative this year just because of the pandemic. So we know things are going to be tough, guys. It's not lost on us that people are still suffering financially, personally, professionally. So it's a conservative goal, but it's still less than what we really need to operate and function efficiently. So because of that, that's why we're doing all these side hustle fundraisers. You know, we have $1 million golf shot. We have our fill your freezer, which, you know, we're in the middle of right now, because even though if we get to that 800,000 number, it's still a lot less than we gave out last year, and it's a lot less than the needs that we're being asked for every single day.
Can I ask you, what is your perfect world to fulfill what your community needs are? What would be that dollar figure?
I would say 1.2 million.
So you're actually coming in about 2/3 of where you need to be to fulfill the communities.
Yeah, there was a lot of, and it hurts my heart because I've been here at this agency as a volunteer for 16 years. And I was here on the days and the campaigns when we had 1.5 million, 1.2 million. Anything less than $1 million in a campaign was scary for me, being a longtime volunteer. So the fact that I'm trying to get excited about an $800,000 goal is just foreign to me. But I know we can do it, and it's tough right now. That's less than what we raised last year.
Now, where the funds are coming in, are they from business entities? They're from individuals? How does that break down?
Yeah.
Versus employees having it taken out of a paycheck withhold?
Yeah, the meat and potatoes is really those workplace campaigns. Again, back when we used to release that 1.2, 1.5, which we're still being asked for, we had major campaigns. So we've got, you know, there's just big organizations here that aren't just contributing at all, or they're not contributing what they can just because of lack of people. But that's where the majority of our funding comes from, is those workplace campaigns. The We Rise Together grants that the county was offering, the $20,000, we were excluded from that because we're considered an umbrella organization because we upline to United Worldwide, which we got no funding from United Way Worldwide. Our major fundraisers were canceled because of COVID. We gave out all of our money for COVID relief, and then we couldn't even get a $20,000 grant because we identify with United Way Worldwide, who we are still having to pay dues to for services, for marketing, for legal support and training. So, I mean, not to be, not to sound like a Debbie Downer, but that's real. That's real talk right there.
Now, you've mentioned several times about paying the dues to United Way, right? The international group. Is that based off a percentage of what you bring in, or is it a flat rate on a tier? Yeah,
it's a percentage. So it's 1% of our campaign revenue.
Okay.
And for what, I can't complain too much because for the value that they add back to us, it's worth it, because otherwise I would have to hire a marketing agency. I would have to, have an attorney I could call up. I would have to, have HR on staff. So it's all of those added benefits that we all have to pay for at work. I just have to pay for them through a franchise. But being associated during the pandemic, being associated with them has hurt us, because it's people, I guess, think that they're just cash cowing us, and that's not the case. And again, we were excluded from that $20,000 for that reason, just off the top.
Heather, I want to circle back to the impact of your work, because one of the projects that was funded was the Fellowship of Christian Athletes Camp. And there's an iconic picture that is circulating on social media because not only was that camp funded, you and your staff participated in the camp as camp mothers. And the iconic picture of you sitting down with a young man, counseling him doing that. So talk about the impact, not just to the community, but just the impact on you and your staff in regards to participating with that.
And that's the United Way that I think everybody would see. Because we're trying to pivot towards a modern United Way. Back in the day, people used to see us as a grant maker. That's not the case. We are an impact agency. So we are actually identifying ourselves as the modern United Way. That's what I want people to see. We're not just writing checks. We are out there serving every single week. Every week we're doing something. We're delivering Meals on Wheels. We're working summer camps. We're delivering educational supplies through On Track. We're working at Miss D's Blessing to Be a Blessing box, giving out food every single week. We are serving. So it's not just about fundraising is about like giving back and looking at people that need help and saying, what can we do for you? And I get emotional thinking about that camp and those kids there, because this is what we live for. This is what we try to do every single day. We fight for those kids and those babies every single day. So it's not just sitting back in an office, and again, asking people to buy, raffle tickets. It's literally about how can we make our community be better? How can we help our community? How can we invest in everybody so they have better opportunities? And that's what we fight for every single day, every day.
So last question in this block. In our community, we know we have a lot of people that formerly commuted to DC or Baltimore. They probably work from home now, but the point is their companies or their agencies that they work for are not located here, so they're not going to get exposed to a United Way campaign.
Yeah.
There are others that may be retired that don't get exposed. If someone watching this show wants to become involved, how do they do that?
And thank you for bringing that up, because those donors are so incredibly important to us. And again, we live for and we love Citigroup. We love them, and they're an amazing partner to us. But gone are the days that we can depend on one partner for a large percentage of our funding. That ship has sailed. It's gone. So we have to focus on the individual donors, those people who, may not work here or they live here, whatever that looks like for them. But we have to focus on everybody individually now and invite them to give, advocate, volunteer. They can give through our website. We can still set up payroll deductions for people and their employers right through our website. They can become a continuous giver right through our website. Those donors are so much more important to us now than they were 10 years ago, because again, those days are gone of those big, massive workplace campaigns. It's just a different world that we're living in these days. So that's where I'm trying to beat the street and find those people who have a love for community and a love for service and giving back and saying, let me tell you my story. I don't care who you're associated with, who you work with, but I'm going after the Henrys and the Jims and the Reggies to say, like, you can make a difference and here's how. Volunteer opportunities, every day, like I said, we're out doing something. So give, advocate, volunteer. You don't have to be just a workplace campaign. There's so many different ways to be involved.
Okay, thank you. We're going to ask Heather to stay around for one more segment, and we'll talk about COVID. We hope you'll stay with us too. Welcome back. Again, for the third time, we're happy to have Heather Guessford here with us from the United Way. Let's talk COVID. Henry, do you want to start us out?
Sure. Heather, the COVID was something completely unanticipated, obviously. I imagine that it threw not just a wrench, but a whole toolbox in the way you do business, the way you disperse funds into the community, and what our community needs were. And I know it's a really broad topic, so if you can zero in on something, I would really appreciate it.
Absolutely, and since day one, my team literally put on our helmets and said, we are in full crisis response mode, and it's been that way ever since. We literally activated a massive whiteboard in my office, and every single day, the first thing that we did in the morning, what's on fire? And that has been our strategy ever since. We literally had a whiteboard that had all of our partner agencies plus everybody we heard from in the community. What do they need? What's most critical? What's most urgent? And we literally had a response board, and we just tried to respond to the most urgent need, and again, what was on fire that day. And we have lived our professional lives that way ever since. It's round the clock. It's evenings, weekends, still. It's wherever the community needs us, we're going. And it's ongoing.
That's also impacted your ability to, because of people suffering through massive layoffs.
Yes.
That's impacted what your budget has been of what funds are available.
And our, times are not great for any nonprofit, but for us, we had to cancel our major fundraisers. We had to stop campaigning for our community impact funds because we knew our community needed us for a COVID response. So our major fundraiser for the year was canceled. We pulled campaign early and stopped going out to businesses, obviously because it wasn't safe, but also because we said we need to pivot to COVID. Ever since we started fundraising for COVID, which was April 1st, 100% of those funds that we have raised have been re-released back into the community, 100%, with our amazing partners. I was remiss to mention them, the Community Foundation of Washington County. We jumped on board with them April 1st and said, we need cash, we need it fast, and 100% of it needs to go back to our community when they need it the most. And since April 1st, we've raised now over $304,000.
Wow.
And 100% has been redistributed.
So you said you had the board in your office, that the What's on Fire Today board.
Yes.
Tell us about some success stories.
Oh, this is what I love of my job. This is when times are tough and we're having a bad day and we're feeling beat up. This is what we try to focus on, is all the positive, beautiful things that we've done. Because I go from one day of asking people for distilled water, because we have Commission on Aging, which is one of our biggest partners. You know, they can't get distilled water for their homebound seniors, to asking for shelf-stable food, to asking for PPE, to asking for cat litter, because the Humane Society can't get cat litter. Like, can you imagine when you can't go to the store and get cat litter? So, and we were able to meet every single need. There is not anything that we have put out a call to action for that we've not been able to do. Now, it wasn't easy, but every single day I was getting online, I was shooting videos, and I'm saying, listen guys, hospice needs, you know, this type of sterilization equipment. Who can do it? I've got, you know, Humane Society asking for this. Who can do it? The YMCA, you know, they need this Clorox 360 cleaner, for, you know, for their daycare center there. Who can do it? And we got it done because we all came together. And I'd say our biggest success story, the cash is great, the cash is always king, but just being able to, my agency was able to secure and distribute thousands and thousands of units of PPE when we had our nursing homes couldn't get it, Meredith couldn't get it, but we got it. And I was able to take it out to Kaufman Nursing Home myself, handing it to them, handing it to Homewood, and Homewood saying to me, we literally ran out, we had none. And it was one of, just for me personally and professionally, one of the most uplifting experiences. And I'm getting goosebumps because just seeing the reaction on their face when I'm physically handing them life-saving PPE, gowns, robes, booties, hospice. I'm taking them booties so they can walk into people's homes, gloves, you know, community free clinic, Kaufman. I mean, there was it was over 30 agencies that we were serving, taking life-saving supplies to. You can't even top that. But, you know, money is great, but if you can't physically protect people and buy the supplies, it means nothing. So that was definitely the most uplifting, rewarding experience, is physically seeing their appreciation and their faces when we're taking them those life-saving supplies. It was awesome. It was really great.
All right, Reggie?
One of the other fires that we've been trying to put out as a nation has been social justice issues that we've been facing. And I know that the United Way locally came out with a statement. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of speak to that and how you guys felt about that and what your stance is? Yeah,
and for us, I thought, wow, we're putting out a statement. We live this every single day, but part of me was a little disappointed. Like, we had to, for some people, like they need to hear it. They need a statement to be reminded to be kind, be a good person, have compassion and empathy for everybody. So part of me was a little angry writing the statement and saying, like, this is so sad that I need to remind people to be kind to each other. So, but I knew I needed to do it. I knew we needed to take a stance. But United Way, this isn't our mission. We fight for everybody every single day. Social equity, justice, diversity. We literally live it, breathe it. We are in that mission. But I tell you, I'm so incredibly proud of what we do. Our United Way worldwide, and again, we know that we're doing it. We know that we have so many different platforms, and we're fighting for those that have barriers or feel like they don't have the equities and the empowerment that other people do. But United Way Worldwide said, all right, we're going to get behind it. We're going to put our money where our mouth is. We're going to put it in writing. So as of July 28th, United Way Worldwide literally had an addendum to our bylaws. And our articles of incorporation, the whole nine, we changed everything legal on paper to enact 3 different areas, 3 different bullets to protect diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that includes statements against inequities, racism of any kind. It includes diversity training for our team, our board members. Because again, I know where my team stands, I know what we fight for, but our volunteers, our committee members, our board members, you will participate in this training every single year. And it also includes how we're gonna adapt community impact. to meet those equities and inequities rather, and to be more diverse. So equity statements are great, and again, I love that people feel the need to put them out and they have them, and I'm like, okay, I know where you stand, but you got to do it. You have got to serve. You can talk all day and that's beautiful, but what are you doing? And I mean, I can't even count on both hands the amount of service that we have done and to lift people up, and especially our work with people that have barriers and in our communities that have barriers. I can't even off the top of my head, it's countless. So I just encourage everybody to not just like talk about it, but actually show up and like fight for real social change and fight for people that need it. But it was nice, and it was so empowering to see that United Way Worldwide literally said, we know we're doing it, but let's just go ahead and put this in writing. And you have to, if we don't adhere to those 3 things, we will lose our franchise. We will no longer be able to be a part of them.
Since the founding of the United Way, they have always attempted to be an inclusive organization. Okay, they do not judge someone based upon where they grew up, what complexion their skin is, or what their education challenges have been.
Yep.
So only thing you did was refortify by adding those addendums to your constitution.
I would say adding them just makes it feel, I don't know, it just makes it feel so different, because we know that we've done it and we know it's in our mission statement, but by requiring all United Ways to do it, I think it's just setting like a different precedence, because United Ways are all over the world. You got some that are in very rural areas. Washington County is very much divided in certain areas. So it's not lost on us that there's sensitivity for some, and especially some United Ways in some more rural areas. But if you're going to live and breathe this mission, you got to be able to believe in what we
United
are.
Way, do we have United Way in China?
We do,
Okay.
yeah.
So
yeah.
Are they living under the same guidelines?
Yeah. Well, there's, of course, they say about, and again, because there's different cultures, so the way it's written, it's, racism of any kind, and it also includes, against, different religions, and again, how people are identifying.
So if we're talking about the Middle East, it needs to be a little bit more inclusive to all the religions available out.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's So they really, and that's where it's fascinating to see the dynamics.
Because see, we're focused on the United States.
Yep.
We're focused on Washington County and what our challenges are, but we have to realize that the United Way is a global organization, and the challenges that they face in Hagerstown, Maryland, is far different than the challenges 3,000 miles east and west.
It's totally different, and we have to be sensitive to that. But for me, like that's, I love, and well, we have some franchises and again, in other countries where women are still oppressed. Like imagine that in 2020. I mean, you're talking about like Iraq and Iran and places like that. Now, mind you, it's not my space per se. I just try to fight for everything that we need here in our community, but it's really interesting the dynamics of what works in Washington County for our United Way doesn't work for our DC United Way. They're a massive organization. They've got tons of staff. I have 3.5 staff because I want to keep us as lean as possible so I can turn over every single penny possible to my agencies.
But the entire community within DC is vastly different than the community within Hagerstown.
Yep.
So, and the needs in Hagerstown are considerably different and more challenging to a certain respect than what they may be in downtown DC.
Yeah, and we don't have the resources. I mean, it's, people tend to give to like the bigger, sexier organizations. And, when we have Truist, for example, who is an amazing supporter, but, when Truist is looking at what United Ways should we support, like your bigger United Ways are obviously always going to rise to the top because they have a bigger need. It's just, they have bigger teams, bigger programs, bigger everything. So sometimes United Ways, I feel like we almost compete against ourselves a little bit because, for example, the NFL has a partnership with United Way Worldwide. So Steelers, just the football team, they gave United Way Worldwide all of this money. Now, again, that does go towards a lot of our programs that we support, like 211, the United Way Worldwide funded 211, and again, it goes into all these different things. But still, people are giving to the big nationals when I beg this community, I'm like, the big nationals, that's great, but what are you doing here first? You got to take care of your local people first. And then if, whatever's left over. But I'm like, our community really needs it too.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we're in Washington County and not Washington, D.C. personally, and I think your point of adding it to the mission in our own community, I don't think it's as much a matter. I think it's more about prioritization. I think we probably, hopefully, adhered to those principles previously, or at least the majority of the population. And those that are not in the majority, they're not going to adhere regardless.
Yeah, and we're not, and I don't want to focus on them. At first I thought, well, what can we do to, to break through and get through to them? And I thought they've never been United Way supporters. They'll probably never be United Way supporters if, some people are very set in their ways, and I've had to learn to realize that I'm not going to please everybody. But I know that I have to stand up for what's right. I know I have to stand up for what's in my heart and do the right thing, and then the rest is just going to fall into place. And I know there's some people that are just going to have hate in their heart for whatever reason, or feel super strongly about whatever they feel so strongly about, and nothing I say or do is going to be able to convince them otherwise.
Well, I think hate in their heart is probably the most appropriate term in my view anyway. And you can't deal with that other than, because certainly babies are not born with that.
Yep,
That
it's
is a
learned behavior. It's learned behavior, yes sir.
Heather, thank you for joining
Thanks
us.
for having me.
I wanted to ask you about Jess Cagle.
Yes.
And Jess Cagle is a historical figure, a force of one in United Way history in Washington County. This is the first time you and I have talked since you assumed this new position. I think it's fair to say that Jess Cagle would be proud.
Oh, now you're going to make me cry.
So, thank you for coming. I hope you'll come back and tell us as the campaign continues.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good to have you.
Stay with us. When we come back, Fast Five. We're back after these commercials. Welcome to Fast Five, where our three panelists talk about 5 topics in 7 short minutes. Let's get started. Reggie, HCC announced that they received a $100,000 donation to establish a scholarship from a lady who passed, who, frankly, I'm not familiar with. I don't know whether you are or many in the community are, but clearly here's a lady that is reinvesting in this community through what I believe anyway is a wonderful organization, our local community college.
Absolutely, and I think that in this time, what better time that money could come in the midst of COVID and some of the challenges that we're going to see coming out of that. And what a wonderful opportunity for some of the students there to be able to take advantage of that as well.
Well, what I see, it's a Mildred Knott.
Right.
Okay. When reading the article there, Dr. Kepler, the original president of HCC, and then Louise Harrison, who was,
Lois.
Sorry. They made an impact. They went the extra mile, which is what I think we find with our local community college. They go the extra mile. It started back here, left a lasting impression. She benefited from it, so she decided to reward the college for their good efforts.
Well, I just think this is an interesting, we think about how we can leave a mark on community, and certainly we do that through our children, but I think this is another interesting thing, and hats off. I'm sorry that she's passed now and she won't get the credit she deserves, but isn't it great that we have people in this community like her that are willing to step up in such a way that they're not going to get credit while they're living, but their legacy is going to live on, and clearly it's going to do good in our community.
Absolutely.
Okay, Maryland's highway system, among the worst in the U.S. Henry, what say you?
I-81 for anybody at this table. Okay, if you're on I-81, just our little section of the world, it's pretty bad. I mean, the roads aren't bad. The congestion and all the construction in perpetuity is bad. But also the congestion that we have 2 major metro centers, DC and Baltimore, the I-95 corridor, all of it contributes into a lot of abuse on the highways, a lot of congestion because of the population base. And a lot of maintenance that needs done. I don't know if I would rate them the worst because I've been in other states, and I tell you what, you can lose a car in a pothole in Rhode Island, okay? But
Pennsylvania's not always great either.
Yeah, but their construction, we always know they're working on 81, okay? But beyond that experience, I can tell you, Providence, Rhode Island, it's the worst roads I've ever been on.
Yeah.
So,
Reggie?
Well, I think this speaks to some of the issues we're having nationally with crumbling infrastructure and some needs to address that. Hopefully our delegation is going to be able to move some things in Annapolis in regards to Highway 81. I know some things fell through last legislative session, but I would hope that is still on the agenda because improvements definitely are needed.
Well, the interesting thing is, and we are in a time right now where a large percentage of the population is working from home, and I would hope that the roads today are far less congested than they have been in the last 15 years.
But we don't have the money right now to put into fixing up the roads.
I get it. My point is this paradigm shift that has happened via COVID, is that going to be a permanent paradigm shift where we're going to see continued work from home and those trips to DC, those commuting efforts to DC, because a lot of businesses that said previously, we can't have a remote workforce. Guess what they have today?
But you're also hearing reports from a lot of the businesses that are forced into remote sections that they are not getting the same throughput from their employees.
Right.
They're not happy with, across the board, they don't feel like they're getting as much bang for the buck. But now as an employee, you're on call 24/7. Yeah. I mean, Jim, I think you just do a lot of virtual work. So
there are a lot of studies that have been going on in the last several months that would dispute what you just said, that businesses don't get more out of their employees from a work-at-home basis.
It's a longer workday for the employee.
It is. And the reality is that for most people, the meetings, if you had a 2 o'clock meeting, you wouldn't schedule one at 2:30 because you had to drive back from that meeting, and then you had to drive to the next meeting. And now you have a 2 o'clock meeting, you have a 2:30 meeting, you have a 3 o'clock meeting, you have a 3:30 meeting, and it's back to back.
So do you think this is going to lead to higher unemployment because you can get one person to do two people's job?
Well, that's not the conversation we're having right now, but right. I'm not smart enough to say that, but who knows what's going to happen.
I would say this. In the times that we're in with everyone working remotely, I would think that an area like us may go through a boom. Because when you start looking at real estate values and buying homes, if you're not tied to a metro area like DC or Baltimore, why would you not come to a rural community where property values are better? So for us, we may see more traffic because of an influx of people getting to rural communities.
And what are the keys?
Urban centers.
What are the keys for the rural communities to be successful? High-speed internet access.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a number one key. So I'll leave it with that thought.
Okay. All right, topic 3, oil demand. Woes deepen about oil demand, and there is a suggestion that the global demand won't return to pre-COVID levels until at least 2022. Henry?
I think that's not accurate, at least in my book. I know for me, we're doing more driving than what we had in the past. But as far as globally, construction's still working. We're still building. There things that were on the books to be done. They're still maybe not being done as quick, but they're still on the books to be completed. I think there's still a need, but as we discussed previously regarding remote workforce, there may be a reevaluation that we don't need this giant office space here anymore because we don't have to pay for it if it's in someone's third bedroom. So there may be some other ways that they're going to change things, and that could impact. But I think there's going to be a continued need for this. I think it's going to also be rivaled with the advances that we're seeing in alternative energy. Between solar and battery backup, I know in California and Nevada, they were having rolling blackouts yesterday. And why is that happening? Because we're not maintaining our infrastructure there, and we're not getting the resources they need in order to produce energy.
I think this article is in line with part of our conversation last week in regards to the economy. Because, if you remember, I talked about 2023 in regards to the recovery. What this article says to me is that economic output is still not going to get back to normalized levels till the end of 2022 or 23. I think this article is kind of in line with that in regards to kind of us getting back to what we would consider normal.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can tell you that I filled up my tank last week, and it was the first time in a month I had.
I wish.
Yeah. So I think obviously your mileage may vary, no pun intended.
Yeah, well.
But I think there are a lot of people that are not driving near as much.
It feels awful good to pay $2.05 at the tank. I never thought we'd say it feels awful good to pay $2 for a gallon of gas, but compared to where we were, I'm pretty happy about it.
So the latest thing on the health front is a fear of a twindemic, which means that we would not only have COVID, but the potential for whatever the flu looks like this year. And they are pushing urgently for the population to get health shots or flu shots. Health shots, that would be a good one. Reggie, what do you say about that?
I guess this is kind of a doom and gloom part of the scenario. It's tough in regards to I've never received the flu shot myself. My children received flu shots. I never have. And then to talk about a vaccine coming up, for COVID as well, that's a lot. That's a lot. And it's going to be interesting to see how this fall-winter season plays out. But thinking of those two having major impacts together is a scary scenario.
Henry?
We currently are social distancing. We are remote working. So if there is an outbreak of a flu, then population has already been pretty much isolated. So I'm not a fan of flu shots. I've had one in my life, and I didn't have any ill effects, but I really don't have intentions on getting another one. I'll take my risk because the people who get the flu shots and the people who don't get the flu shots, their survival rate, if they get the flu, is relatively unchanged. So getting a flu shot is, like taking 6 dice, tossing them on the table and hoping that you're going to all roll up with perfect sixes, because you have no idea what you're going to get.
Well, they don't know what strain
they're taking a guess of what strain is going.
What strains actually?
Right. What the strains are going to be when they hit them when the flu season comes around. So, some years they've been right, some years they've been wrong. Again, wash your hands. Practice your social distancing. Be smart about what you do. If anything we should have learned from COVID is keep your hands washed, keep your surfaces clean. You're going to defeat a lot of these challenges.
Well, and that's exactly where I was going to go next. I mean, I think it's fair to say that we've all learned a lot about staying more alert about washing our hands and using the antibacterial gel and so forth. So hopefully that'll have an impact on how much the flu would spread. I've gotten a couple flu shots. I don't do it regularly. Every time I go into the doctors in August and September, and in fact you'll hear today that I'm still nasally from my allergies. It started back in April, and the doctor, when I called her last week or 2 weeks ago for her to give me more allergy medicine, she said, we really need to talk about a flu shot. And I said, talk to you in September, Doc. So I don't know where I am on it. I'll probably end up getting one, but it's not something I do on a regular basis. All right, here's the WTF or What the Flipside segment for tonight. California woman dreamed about eating her engagement ring and woke up to find that, well, she really did. What do you say?
I think it brings new meaning to making sure you eat your vegetables, right? Because she ate her carrot.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I like that.
Yeah, cute. Sometimes dreams do come true. So I guess in her, fortunately, it did not cause any internal damage. She was able to get it removed.
Right.
A couple days, it got probably cleaned up, 2 or 3 times, and she's back on. And she's still planning on getting married to the same guy who gave her the engagement ring. So it's not that bad of a situation.
He didn't bail on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. She does have a history of sleepwalking. So, I don't know. That's interesting. All right, last block for Fast Five. So this is actually number 6 topic in Fast Five, but I had to include this one. 95-year-old Bicycle Bob in California. Here's another California story. Rides his 100,000th mile, and by the way, he is doing it all while social distancing. He had a mask on when he was filmed. Henry, what say you?
Well, it says he rides about 9 miles a day, if I'm reading that right. If he rides 9 miles a day on a bike, he's ridden more miles on a bike than I have in the last 25 years. Okay, so more power to him. And the fact that he is 95 years old and he's out there doing it, I think that's fantastic. 100,000 miles, my hat's off to him.
All right. Reggie?
Not only does he ride 9 miles per day, but he does every day regardless of the weather.
Yeah, I saw that.
That is quite a bit of perseverance, and he has lived a blessed life.
Yes, he has. And that's all the time we have for tonight. We hope you will like us on Facebook. We hope you will follow us on Twitter. We hope you will send us your comments and suggestions to feedback@theflipsidetv.com. That's feedback@theflipsidetv.com. Most importantly, we hope you'll join us again next week for another visit to the Flip Side. Good night. It's all good, baby.
Is it really all good?
If you love me enough to routinely test your handyman skills, not to mention the strength of your marriage, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/therightseat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.